Please be seated. They say that a picture paints 1,000 words, and if I could, I would have asked you to bring in a picture of yourself and to show it to those around you. Would have a show and tell. And so you'd get the photo, or it could be a drawing actually, or it could be a painting, and you'd say something to the person alongside you about the two other people who happen to be in the picture alongside you. Who are they? What on earth are they doing there? Explain how that picture with those people says something very important about who you are and what you're on about. Those two people in your picture need not currently be alive. But who are they? Why are they there? What is it, or what was it about them? How is it that they've influenced the shape and the trajectory of your life? Have a little bit of a think about that picture of you and the two others. I tried to have a bit of a think as to who I might put in it. It's hard. It's really hard. So I'm asking you something that's not easy. I think I'd probably put one of my favourite writers, Marilyn Robinson, in there. I don't know whether you've ever read any of and it might be a bit pretentious, but I'd stick Martin Luther in there too, the great Protestant reformer. But anyway, there's that photo, and maybe after the service over morning tea, you could ask one another, who did you imagine in your photo? Who were there? Two others with you. Now, I mention this and ask you to engage in that little exercise, probably a silly little exercise, but in our gospel reading today, as we've just heard, we have Jesus taking some time out. He heads up a hill, up a mountain, traditionally Mount Tabor, and he takes with him just a few of his disciples. And he goes to pray, and he prays, and the disciples are sleepy, and they fall asleep, and it's not the only time that they happen to do this. But when they open their eyes, when they wake up, when they're wide awake, they see something remarkable. Jesus is still there, but he's different. His clothes are bright, radiant, dazzling, and he's not alone. It's like our little picture. They see Jesus, and alongside him are two people, Moses and Elijah. Jesus with Moses and Elijah. One of the disciples doesn't know what to say, but needs to say something, so he suggests that they build some tents, some shelters. They're enveloped in a cloud. A voice is heard. This is my beloved Son, with whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. And then there's just Jesus and a few disciples, Peter, James, and John. They descend from the mountain, and they tell no one, at least not at first. Well, what are we to make of all this, and especially of that picture? Jesus and the other two alongside him. Why these two? Why are they there? Moses and Elijah. Why not Abraham, or Isaac, or Jacob, or David? Well, I think the answer is clear. Moses and Elijah represent the law and the prophets. Moses, who received the law on Mount Sinai, and Elijah, who represented the prophetic tradition and the concern of the prophets, the concern for mercy and justice, for the poor, for the outcast, for the homeless, the foreigner, the widow, the sick. And in our Old Testament reading, you saw the high regard in which Elijah is held, certainly by Elisha, but by others as well, in the way that he was received. In what we know as the Sermon on the Mount, right at the very beginning of that, Jesus says very clearly, don't think that I've come to do away with all that's come before. Don't think I've come to abolish the law and the prophets. I haven't. I've come to complete them. I've come to fulfill them. And here, in this little incident, we've got a picture of that. It's almost as though, for those who are visual learners, this will do the job. In Matthew's Gospel, for those who are verbal processors, think not that I've come to abolish the law and the prophets. I haven't come to abolish them. I've come to fulfill them. But here, the same thing is being said. We have a confirmation that Jesus stands in tradition with Moses and Elijah, with the law and the prophets. There they are, framed alongside him, apparently endorsing the ministry of Jesus. And they're not the only ones. There's also the voice from the cloud, "This is my Son, whom I love. Listen to him." Now, there's been a question I've been pondering this week, and it's this. Why in the readings that are set for this time of year is that scene, that picture, always set for us, always presented to us? The beginning of Lent, there or thereabouts. We follow the lectionary a lot of the time, most of the time, except when Stuart, or now Matt, decides rector's license, we can go in a different direction, and that's fine. But we follow the lectionary a lot of the year. And in the lectionary, this scene, these readings, whether it's from Matthew, Mark, or Luke's Gospel, it's always there. What's the connection between this scene and Lent? That's the question, and I'll tell you my thoughts in a moment. But first of all, a little reminder that the Lenten season, believe it or not, is almost upon us. Begins this Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and we have one of those beautiful and meditative services here at St Michael's at 7 o'clock this Wednesday, an 8 a.m. service down at St Peter's in the morning, and a 7 p.m. Taizé service in the evening. And then we've got the 40 days of Lent, all the way through to Easter, preparing us for Easter, that high and holy season in the church calendar. And Lent, this time of self-discipline, self-denial, giving up something small as a reminder that Jesus gave up something great, or taking on a challenge, a book to read, a Bible study program to embark on, a new spiritual discipline to undertake. That's what we do in Lent. And my question, what does this scene, this transfiguration scene, this scene with Jesus alongside Moses and Elijah, representatives of the law and the prophets, what does it have to do with Lent? And it always occurs right at the beginning of this season. Well, my answer comes from what it is that they were discussing. What were Moses and Elijah and Jesus said to be talking about up there? Well, in our reading, we're not told. We're just told they're talking, having a chat. It goes like this, verse 4. Moses and Elijah were talking with Jesus. So we don't discover anything there, but if we turn to Luke's Gospel, we read this. They spoke about his departure, which he was to bring to fulfillment in Jerusalem. It's as if Jesus goes up the mountain to have some time out because he knows he's about to embark on a journey. He goes up there to gain strength, to gird his loins, so to speak, before entering the fray. And he gains strength, and he gains encouragement, and he gains endorsement from Elijah and Moses and from the voice in the cloud, that the journey when he comes down that mountain, the journey that he must pursue, is a journey to the cross. They spoke about his departure, which he was to bring to fulfillment in Jerusalem. And in Lent, we accompany Jesus on that Moses and Elijah and voice endorsed journey, and have the journey to Jerusalem. And we have the opportunity to reflect, and to reflect deeply on what that death, that crucifixion, that cross might mean for us, for you and me, and for our contemporary world. And so I commend the season of Lent to you, and I commend you and your Lenten journey, which takes you all the way to Calvary. I commend you to God's mercy and grace. Amen.